I don't know if that music's a little too loud. I hope not. But I'm going to do just a quick session to get some lighter highlights on her face and skin. Did a little bit of orange, orange fire mixed with flesh last time. Do kind of a bronze flesh tone. Up to what is this? Flat flesh. I'm gonna try and do flat flesh this time. And we're just gonna listen to some beats by Harris Heller, stream beats by Harris Heller. Kind of thinking about this, like where the lighting comes from or where you want to accentuate, which is, my wife told me it's kind of like when you put makeup on. You want to do the cheekbones, you want to do the top of the nose, kind of do the forehead. When you're doing the mid-tone, you can kind of do more, do the chin. Real highlights, you just want to hit those cheekbones. The rest of the stuff dark. Yeah, see how orange her shoulders are? We're gonna lighten that up a little bit. Not only is this mix a little, turn the mic a little, make sure you can hear me. Not only is this mix a little of both paints, maybe a little bit on the lighter side, you can kind of see there, but it's also a little watery, so it doesn't fully cover. It's still a little transparent, and that helps the orange, that'll help the orange tone underneath to come through, but also it'll help it so that there's not like harsh transitions between the colors. Sometimes you want there to be. Sometimes I like how that looks when it's kind of cell shaded and there's just like a really clear dividing line between the two. But for the most part, a lot of painters want, and what I'm kind of trying to go for here is more of a blend. All right, let's see. Light highlights at the top here. Nose. Again, like I said, on those cheekbones. Basically anywhere where you look at a picture, that's naturally going to be highlighted. Not under the nose, maybe a little bit on the upper lip, maybe a little bit on the... Now, the thing with her is I have to go back over and do some white on her markings. Are they tattoos? Are they tribal markings? Are they just part of her alien biology? That I'm not sure of. I don't know enough of the lore. Somebody tell me. Yeah, again, like kind of right in the middle. Do a little bit of this lighter highlight, just so it looks like there's some lighting sources on there, which is kind of cool. All right, we're gonna let the orange dry a little bit. Maybe I'll I'll do one more highlight. I'm not sure. I'm gonna get some light blues to her. Actually, let me do a white. That's what I'm doing. This is the trick, is remembering the colors you've done. I think I did a buff on her before because I wanted it to look a little bit yellowy. But I'm going to do a bone white on there now to get it even more white. And then we'll go back with some even lighter white highlights and some, get those blues going. So definitely at the top, we're gonna, I keep them, my weird brush angles. Hence the name, left-handed minis. That's this guy. Some of the lower parts we'll leave just the full yellow. Most of the back, or not yellow, buff, sorry. It's kind of a tanny yellow. That's a little bit of how I layer up paints. I'm not super good at it. There are people who are much better than me, who've been painting for much longer than me, who do this very well. But I'm just learning kind of as I go. I'll do a little bit more white there. Learning as I go. And the nice thing is, it doesn't really matter when you're starting out. You can just kind of paint what looks good and looks fun to you because you're just playing it on your tabletop. No one else is ever going to see it, so why are you worried about it? And then as you get better and better, then you can worry about it. Or not. I paint mine, I'd say I usually just paint mine to a tabletop plus standard. Tabletop is usually what you'd say. Tabletop is usually what you'd say you'd use for if you're just painting, say, for your own game nights. Tabletop plus is, you add a little bit of extra detail, highlighting and shading. And so it's just a little bit higher standard, but really not that much. And then there's like display quality, where you really start to amp up the quality. And there's competition quality, which I will never probably enter a competition. That's just too much for me. But you can see what a couple of layers on this will do. There's her just plain. And if I start to look at like where the light might reflect off it, start to do just a little bit of highlights there. Oh, it starts to come out looking a little cooler. I can do that. Whoa, there's the. I can do that kind of all the way around. Look a little. Follow the model a little bit. Do a wash on her. I might want to do a wash on her before I do final highlights. Washes are fun because because once you get the base coats to a point where you like it, throw a wash on there and it really just seeps into the cracks and brings out all the cool details of the model that you might have lost a little bit while you're painting them. Maybe I'll do a little bit of that right now just to show you. Before I do any more highlighting, I think I will. Let me get my, I think we'll do a washes typically black or brown are the ones that cut this part out. Yeah, we'll cut that part out. We'll edit that. That was a big pause. But so washes typically are black or brown. You can get a whole bunch of different colors, but they are typically those two, and they're often just kind of a different formula of the paint. They're just a little watered down. And so check this out. Like, I hope you can see this. So, you know, there's her sort of head tails without the wash. See that without the wash. And then as soon as I put the wash on, you can start to see a lot of those details come back, which is really cool. You lose a ton of those details when you put your first base coats on. That's why I call it kind of the ugly phase. I'm not sure if there isn't an ugly phase when I paint. It all seems to be ugly, and then suddenly it kind of comes together in the end. But now what this wash is going to do is it's going to dry pretty transparent on the model, but it'll give some depth to all of these details that we've lost a little bit of in the base coating. So a lot of times the process looks like you put on a base coat or a full set of base coat layers. You put on a wash, and then you do highlights. Sometimes people don't use washes. Once you get better, sometimes people do their own highlighting and shading. I'm not that good, so I like washes. I think the downside to them is that sometimes they make your mini look a little grimy. And on like smooth surfaces, they're not great. I'm not going to put it on the lightsabers, for example, but I will put it on pretty much everywhere else and let it kind of dry out so you can see the difference with the wash on versus off. There's another we'll do on the leg. Kind of see. Gives just a little bit of that depth, especially where there are edges, and where they're not, where it's smooth, it might end up looking a little weird. Have some coffee staining or something like that. We can always go back over that with a highlight. You can always fix stuff up. Washes are nice because they just get into all those cracks that you couldn't really get into before. So see on her face, yeah, you're gonna see that. I don't know how clearly you can see that. But when that dries, it looks really dark right now. It looks really dark. When that dries, it's gonna be a little bit lighter, but also still pretty dark in the recesses, which is where you want it. And then you can go back over. The trick with the wash is not to go back over it when it's wet. All those cool little details that are coming out on her head. It looks really ugly right now, but that's okay. That's normal. Once that dries, we'll go back and highlight over it and make sure it looks really solid. You can soak some up if you see it like too heavy in some of these creases. Sometimes I go back with just a wet brush or a damp brush. Soak some up if it's a little too heavy around her eyes. I can just soak up a little bit of it. But for the most part, I think that looks good.